Hey everyone, this is Car Ray Rob, where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob.
And we want to welcome you guys to our podcast, Say Hello to My Little Film.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
That's right, everyone. We are back with a brand new episode of Say Hello to My Little Film. Ray, why don't you tell everybody what it is we do here?
With Say Hello to My Little Film, we get the opportunity to expose each other to movies that one of us loves and the other has never seen, hoping we can convince the other person to fall in love with the movie as much as we have.
Absolutely. We call that our fresh perspective on a retrospective review. And I already had my turn this month, which means it is now Ray's turn.
It is, and this is October, and I know you love horror movies. I really wanted to think of a horror movie that
But you let me down.
I couldn't do
didn't
it.
you?
I
You
can't find a
couldn't
horror
do
movie
it.
that I love that I know that you had not seen.
Well, I don't want to force it.
Yeah.
We don't want to force it.
Yep, I didn't want for. There was a couple fringe movies, but I was like, I don't really love these, so I'm not going to do it.
Right.
So what I am going to do is I'm going to go war, because war is scary.
It is, actually.
I'm going to go old school. We're going 1968.
Ooh.
I'm not talking movie yet, but some people call this the greatest war movie ever, or their favorite war movie of all time.
Really?
Yeah,
That is an
and it's
interesting claim.
and so last year I did Gallipoli.
Right. Which I did enjoy.
Yeah, and that's much more of a real war movie. This is more of a spy
Oh,
kind
okay.
of.
Mission Impossible.
Yeah, something closer to that. But
I've seen all the Mission Impossible movies, right?
and that's not the movie that I'm presenting to you for this
fine.
month.
Okay. Well, if you're not going to show me the Mission Impossible movies, Ray, I got to know, what do you got?
What do you got? What do you got? What do you got?
All right, Rob, what I got, like I said already, is from 1968.
Yes.
It's going to have the megastar
Ooh.
Clint Eastwood.
Ooh, I don't know if we've ever had
We've
a Clint
not had a
movie.
Clint Eastwood movie in this
I don't think we've had a
podcast
Clint
yet.
movie.
It also stars Richard Burton, and the movie is Where Eagles Dare.
Oh, I have heard of this movie, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's
I've never
1968, so it's kind of Clint Eastwood's follow-up to the spaghetti trilogy,
Right, the Man with No Name trilogy.
yeah, following that up. So they came back to America and started doing some of the, well, I guess not America's movie takes place really in Austria, but
But this is his coming to
Yeah.
American movie.
sure, yeah. So
Yes. Fuck you too.
Okay, yeah. This is his horrible description in a way, because he's working with the British in this
Right.
movie. There's a plane crash in Nazi Germany. So this is actually a 1940s war movie, or takes place during World War II.
Sure.
Plane crash. The guy who got captured has D-Day plans, and everybody's scared that the Germans are going to talk them, get the plans from him. So they send in a group of people to go, fly in and extract this man from a Nazi castle.
Ah.
So
Okay.
it's now the
Bit
plot.
Indiana Jones there.
Yeah, and so the plot sounds cool, but it's a movie full of crosses.
But it's not.
No, it's better. It's
Okay.
better. The plot sounds cool enough as it is.
Sounds cool, but it's not.
It's even better. There's crosses. There's double crosses. There's triple crosses, or they go back to crosses. I don't know, but
Spoiler
it's
alert.
like, yeah,
Jeez,
no,
no.
you won't be able to be ready. The movie keeps you guessing the whole time.
Okay.
You got Clint Eastwood, who's like the presence. And you have like Clint Barton, who's like the actor. You know what I mean? Like Clint Barton
sure.
does a lot of the talking. Clint does a lot of the
He's
staring.
squinting.
Clint does a lot of the staring. But this movie, it's kind of I know one weird stat about this movie is like as many people as Clint Eastwood has killed in his movies. This movie ranks number one for the most amount of people he kills in a single movie.
That is a heavy claim to make.
It is. Well, it's statistically true, and
Statistically true.
they're Nazis, so it's kind of cool.
Well, there you
we
go.
can get behind that.
You can
So,
get some-
super tense. The movie does such a great job, especially for the time, with like how you do big action set pieces, but like string like really tense moments together for long periods of time. This movie does it really, really well. This was the first movie that I saw that it used front projection, so like the actors could act in front of those like pre-recorded screens of like stuff that's happening. So they kind of get and kind of like the 1968 version of the volume,
Oh,
that Disney
interesting.
uses now.
Yeah.
So a lot of cool stuff. Like I said, really tense movie. I'm super excited for you to watch it.
Okay. Well, yeah, I do like Clint Eastwood. So, but I will say, sometimes these movies, especially the war movies, I think we talked a little bit about this last year when we did High Noon.
Mhm.
Like when those studio pictures were kind of doing a war movie, sometimes it's a bit of a, like a kind of, I don't use the term propagandistic type feel to it, but you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of feel. But this is 68, so it's kind of like moving into new Hollywood. So I'm curious to see what this movie does with something like that. And I hope you are as well. So now is the time in the podcast where we invite you to pause this podcast and go check out Where Eagles Dare.
That's true.
That's it. And see what you think and come back and see if I loved it as much as Ray does.
Ray and Rob are currently watching The Film. You may be also watching The Film. If you're not, then you're listening to me say that Ray and Rob are watching The Film. They'll be right back when they're done watching The Film.
Ray, I have to ask, is it possible for a movie to end in the middle?
Yes. If you've watched Ocean 11-12, that movie ended in the first 20 minutes.
That movie never started.
Yes. This will be something we talk about
Yeah,
because this is this take on this adventure movie, and like, does the plot stop after the halfway mark, and then it's like, all right, sit back, have fun, and watch.
Yeah, no, I can agree. I thought that was an interesting kind of midpoint of the movie, and just how the whole plot pacing kind of mirrors maybe some of like the modern action filmmaking that we see today.
Yeah, so maybe if we think about a question, if we try to think about our question for this movie, maybe we can talk about how or compare this to adventure movies nowadays. So like adventure movies then versus adventure movies now.
Yeah, I
think that
makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I think this is. I think there's a definite argument that this is like kind of like what I've called in the past the proto-punk version of the modern action film.
Yeah.
Just because I think there's a lot of stuff in this movie that I think I still see today.
Right, and we'll go from there. So, but you kind of mentioned, I think let's just jump right into some of the bigger stuff. We got a Clint Eastwood movie, we got a Richard Burton movie here.
Do we? Are we going to say that? You're really jumping out there with that one.
Clint?
Yeah, I was going to say, do we have
talking
a
about
Clint Eastwood movie?
You're talking about Clint?
I don't know if we have a Clint Eastwood movie here.
Yeah.
I think we have a Richard Burton here movie with Clint Eastwood.
Okay, well, funny story. I saved this for this section, but originally when Clint Eastwood read this script, he kind of hated it.
Oh yeah.
He thought it was way too much exposition, too much talking. So he basically refused to say some lines. He wanted just to stand there, kill things, and he said, give Burton my lines. Like, there's too much talking in this movie right now.
I just want to squint in things and sneer.
Pretty much.
Leon just let me sneer and squint a lot. Can't I just do that?
Yeah, well, Richard Burton was coming off some big flop, so he's like, more lines, give me them. I'll eat them up. I have no problem talking.
Well, and he did do that. I'll give it to Richard Burton. He did do that.
Yeah, he does. And he has to. He is the like maybe if the dialogue, if you maybe were going to check a movie and had one guy like assign what percentage of the dialogue was said by one character, Richard Burton might win that like all time. Like, he has to have 85-90% of the dialogue belongs to him.
The only person that might win is Tom Hanks in Castaway.
Sure, there you
he's
go.
the only guy in the movie.
Touche. But yeah, for some type of ensemble-ish type deal, Richard Burton says a lot of words.
Yeah.
But and he has to, like you said, he has to be good because he has to hold up. Like, he has to hold the movie up in a lot of ways. And I think the crux of it, I just want to jump into it because this really isn't the adventure part. So let's talk about it now. But the dining room scene.
Yeah.
The dining room scene.
Well, this is where the movie ends, right?
Right. This is where the mystery ends. Like,
The
or part
mystery,
of
yeah,
it.
the
90%
story,
of the
yeah,
mystery.
99%.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll give it 99% of the
Yeah, 'cause
mystery
we still
ends
have
here.
they still. I think
One
the
twist
last
at
scene
the
is
end.
interesting. We'll
Yeah.
talk about that at the end. But you know, so this dining room scene I think is really hard to pull off, and the first time you watch it, it may be a hair confusing.
It
because,
was a bit,
yeah,
I will admit.
and it purposely though. You know, I don't think it's poor writing. It's just
No,
they're
no.
pulling off a triple cross and they're leaving you out of the mix. It's like you'll
Right.
catch up. Just hold on, bear with us. It's
Just
going to
keep
take a
listening.
minute.
Just keep listening.
How many pages of script do you think this was? Like this
Oh my
one?
God, like 10.
Yeah. And it's all just Richard Burton on a ramble. But
Seriously.
but yeah, so you know he's pulling this triple cross against the Germans, against his crew.
Yeah.
He's keeping Clint Eastwood out of the dark, and I think it's one of those scenes where we've talked about it before on this episode many times. Was like movies want to put you as the viewer in the same position as a character in the movie, and I
Right.
think when you are watching this scene, you should feel essentially like Clint Eastwood, where you're like, "What the hell is going on?"
Yeah, I could agree with that. And you know, it felt very much like the way that it was kind of paced, and as everything was kind of being revealed, all these different elements of the mystery, and like his little games he was playing, like
Yeah.
write down these names and do this, and it felt very much almost like Knives Out.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like a kind of like a detective summation.
A last episode of Only Murderers.
Right,
something.
yeah, exactly. Kind of like, yeah, exactly like that. And so I think that worked, you know, because again, Burton kind of played it perfectly. But yeah, I think I'd almost have to watch it again
You
just to
do,
get
yeah.
all the nuances out of everything. Because I don't think I caught right away
Oh, sure.
like what he was saying about his other three
Right, yeah.
like people that he had brought with him, the other three men, that they were German soldier or like German spies or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, and they were, which was the whole crux ultimately of this whole plot, was to uncover this list from these men,
Right.
you know, of who is like who is infiltrated MI6 essentially.
Yep.
And it's funny because, you know, and you could say this, you know, I'm sure, you know, most movies, especially like a mystery movie, if you will, but I think this movie, it's glaringly so. Like, this movie doesn't work without this scene, because
Oh,
up
yeah.
to this point, you don't know really what the point of any of this is.
Right.
Which is, it's such an interesting thing, you know. So you're watching this first half of the movie, you know, as they're, you know, making their way into the castle. All these pieces are kind of falling into place. You know, people are dying. You know,
Sure.
some of the other team members are dying and stuff like that. And you kind of gather that, you know, through
Somebody in their team is killing them.
right, like there's there's a mole at MI6. It's like, okay, like, is that what all of this is about? And then especially once you find out that Carnaby is not the real Carnaby, you're like, okay, this is very elaborate. Like,
Yeah.
what is the point of all of this?
Yeah.
And even really in the end, to be like, it's just to get this list of guys, you're like, huh, it's kind of like going around your elbow to get to your thumb, you know?
Well, yeah.
Like,
To get the list and to get the head guy.
Right,
Who
and
was
that's
at
probably
the pretty-
biggest
the
part,
pretty
yeah,
high-
which
high
is
up
the
there.
1% left of the mystery
Yeah.
that was left
We're gonna
after that midpoint scene.
Yeah. And so they do give you breadcrumbs because, you know, it's like, you know, early in the movie you see Mary's there's a woman hiding on this plane where they all parachute out of.
Right.
She like comes out of nowhere and like, okay, so they're sneaking extra people into this
Yeah.
mission.
hmm
Then you know, Richard Burton's character kind of tells you, like, when you see this one guy dead with a broken neck, he tells you that his neck wasn't broken.
Right.
You know, and then they basically, you know, they kind of say that the guy, the Canterbury or whatever, is an actor.
Right.
Like, what? So
Yeah.
you know, it's like, so what are we doing? Like, we're doing this, but you know you have moles, or you're doing this to catch the mole.
Moles
or,
and trolls. Moles
yeah.
and trolls.
But anyway, you know, in the dining room scene where it's all kind of explained, you know, like you said, there is nuance, I think, when you watch it the second time, because there's just some ballsiness about it, too, like that you can appreciate more when you're not trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's like Richard Burton at one point tells the Nazis, like, bring your guards in here, have your guards point the guns at these people, because I can't talk and hold guns at these guys at the same time. I'm like,
right.
he knows this is like all bullshit.
Right.
Please bleep that out.
Well, and
and
it's
he's like, bring in
true.
extra guards. Bring in extra guards. I need
Yeah.
more guards in here.
Well, and that's kind of the interesting thing. I feel like the first half of the movie feels very easily gained.
Sure.
Like, you know, everything kind of really more or less goes to plan. Even the stuff that doesn't seem like it's going to plan is going to plan. Like being caught, like
Right.
at the you know, the pub or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it, the bar, like by the Nazis. That clearly was part of the plan, because that was like, I guess, part
Yeah,
of
I
the plan,
think so.
so that they could get them, you know, kind of separated.
It
and
gets
then,
those
like,
three
this
guys
get-
arrested, which is what
Right.
they kind of wanted. So that's how they get
Right.
them into the castle, by them being arrested, which they're okay with because they know they're moles anyway.
Right.
And then he just plays a little dumb because he's keeping Clint Eastwood out of the loop.
Right. Yeah, he's the only one who doesn't know, which I mean that makes sense because if you're you're trying to flush out the mole, again, you don't want anybody else to know that's how you do it,
Right.
So I think, like I said, by the end it all makes sense. It's just
It all works out perfectly.
right. Like
A lot of these movies, it's about things falling apart and not working, but this one's like, no, it's gonna
Right.
work.
But then you do get to that second half where everything really is. I mean, it's just an hour-long action sequence.
Yeah.
Like that's really all it is. And at that point, there's stuff that doesn't go right.
Sure.
And stuff like
Not
that. So I feel like that's where the tension kind of finally happens.
Yeah.
And even but I guess in that center scene too. Obviously there's tension and stuff in that. But I will say that is one thing that I have to about the first half of the movie that I'm like, I'm enjoying this, but I feel like there might have been something missing for me, and I think maybe some of that tension is part of
Yeah, or maybe Clint Eastwood talking.
that. I mean, sure.
Yeah, it's I was kind of thinking that, as I rewatched this movie, I couldn't remember, and so I'll ask you, but I couldn't really remember like how much of the first half I was thinking like, so who's the mole? Like,
Right.
was that something that's on your mind and that keeps you kind of motivated through the first half, or do you kind of keep forgetting about it?
I do kind of keep forgetting about it, and I think that, again, it's kind of because it doesn't feel like it bears on anything.
Yeah.
I think, and that's kind of part of that. Like I said, that kind of lack of tension in that first part of the movie.
Because nobody else knows about it other than Richard Burton. Like Clint Eastwood
Right.
doesn't know there's a mole. You know what I
Right.
mean? So he can't worry about it.
Exactly, and the way that Richard Burton's just kind of carrying himself in the first half of the movie, he doesn't seem particularly worried about any of it. He's
No,
just doing
he knew they were moles.
right,
so,
which was the whole game. So I think it is a bit of a gamble, like with the viewer, to be like, okay, you're going to get these little breadcrumbs. You're not going to know anything. Nobody's going to know anything. But we're also not going to make it seem like it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit in that conversation that he had over the radio, like back with like MI6 HQ.
Yeah.
Like that was probably the most you were kind of like getting, okay, like something is going on here.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it's like,
Yeah, there's that one
sure.
point where he's like, when the second guy is murdered, he radios MI6, and they're like, abandon the mission. He's like,
Right.
just goes dead on his end, like,
Right.
I'm not going to. So then I think they're like, oh man, maybe this is more dangerous than his character was letting on.
Mm-hmm.
And then but I think that scene is so close to when the dining room scene ends the plot anyway,
Right.
and that you don't get enough time to like build it up. Like maybe that first radio call when the first guy died, he said, all right, this is no, let's back out. Let's not do this.
Yeah.
Maybe then you would have been more, through that 45 minutes or whatever it takes to get to the dining room scene, you'd have been more on edge. But
Yeah.
but I do like in that dining room, just to finish up in the dining room scene, because it is very complicated at first. I think you watch it, but there's that one part where the one soldier says, "This plan is too incredible,"
Yeah.
and then Richard Burton's like, "The plan is incredible, but to the British, it's very, very simple."
Right.
Just like if
The
you
most
don't
pompous
get what's
British
going
thing
on right
ever.
now, you're dumb, not us.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. That crap. The movie that Christopher Nolan did recently. What was it?
Who did?
Christopher Nolan. The why is my mind going?
You're talking about Dunkirk?
No. Not
his more
Dunkirk.
recent one?
Yeah, the more recent one, like the sci-fi one, where it was all like weird inside.
Movie.
Tenet.
Oh, that one.
Tenet. Like it reminds me of the moment in Tenet where like they're trying to explain the science,
Yeah.
and then like it gets to the point where it's like, if you don't understand it, don't worry about it. And it's just like, okay, so you don't really, this is all BS. You're
Yeah.
just kind of bulling your way through this, and you just don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Like that's kind of, I feel like it's kind of like that.
Kind of, because I think it does, like, this does track. It's just a triple
It
cross
does,
that you're
it
being on
does,
the
it
left. You're not,
does.
where I think Tenet, like, no, this doesn't make sense. Like, the
No,
physics
it
doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
But yeah, so anyway, you get to that first half, and so and I think the two halves of this movie are very different, because there's characters that kind of show up in the first half too. Like, the movie does spend some time building up von Hoppen, the
Gestapo guy, yeah.
but like his death is really quick because he kind of
Yeah.
interrupts the dining room scene, and you think like, oh, it's gone poorly. Like this is finally like things aren't going to work out,
Yeah.
and then he gets distracted and killed really quickly.
Right.
So I kind of wonder, like, I guess, are they like subverting you? Like you think, hey, here's our big bad, the guy's going to mess us up, and then we just going to kill him really quick? Or
Yeah. I mean,
or
I
what?
think
I'm not
so.
sure.
I think that's part of it, but you go through all the trouble of having him, kind of interact with Mary,
Yeah,
and almost like discover her,
yeah, almost
but then
almost
doesn't
figure it out.
right, but then doesn't confront her, and then like kind of go. But I will say, like, there does seem to be a bit where like the Gestapo and the SS, like they're all not on the same page,
But
like.
they both want credit for
Right,
finding these guys, or
right, or something. So like, maybe that's also part of it. Is like there's a little bit of like double cross even between like Nazi agencies,
yeah,
if you will. So that maybe you could chalk it up to that. I'm not really
yeah.
sure.
Because I do think, to me, like when Von Hoppen is leaving Mary at her room, and you can see him puzzling out, like she doesn't really know the hometown that she's from that
Hmm.
well, and she looked really nervous. He's Gestapo, and he's a curly haired blonde guy. You're like, this must be a horrible German. This guy's going to ruin everything. He's going to figure it out. And he's going to ruin
Right.
everything. So I feel like that you start to feel some potential for tension there.
Yeah.
But then they do kill him off pretty quickly.
Yeah. All you need to do is the German three. Three slices or whatever.
Sure.
Inglorious Bastards. It's the German three.
You don't signal 3 the right way, you're gonna get caught.
Right.
But yeah, so that's that first half, and then the movie is action movie after that. So I think that's kind of what our
Solely.
question revolves around.
Yeah.
And it's going to be so to me, I think for this movie to work for you, or like it does for me, you got to, like, the dining room scene has to be intriguing. You have to really ended up liking it when it was all
Definitely.
said and done.
Mhm.
And then you've got to have fun with the second act. You've got to, I think, particularly have to have fun on the ski lift scene.
Yeah.
It's not really. I guess it's not a ski lift, just a lift.
Right, the lift
The
up
lift
to the
scene.
castle.
The
Yeah,
lift- the lift-
you call it. Yeah,
Or and down,
not
like
an
that
open
lift
ski
battle
lift.
scene. I think
Yeah.
as they go down has to get you. But because this is like it's like we said, it's like a Mission Impossible movie at this point.
Yeah.
It's getting out of this town. It's kind of like a heist movie, except you're escaping with yourself.
Yeah, and I feel like the whole movie to a certain degree feels that way, but where there wasn't tension in that first half, there is in the second half.
Yeah.
Because things go wrong, like Schaffer gets overpowered, and Richard Burton has to kind
Well,
of
the alarm goes off to begin with.
right.
They
The
didn't kill
alarm
that
goes
guy in
off,
time.
and like they have the little thing where like the third one of the guys, they put him out the window, like making him try to
Yeah.
think they were escaping, and just like sacrifice him so that they
That
can.
was cool.
Right. Yeah. And cruel and cool. Cool.
He
So-
was a Nazi. We already said this is the movie where Clint Eastwood kills the most people. They're all Nazis, so we're totally cool
You're
with
fine.
it.
It's fine. Yeah. So I think, the way you typically write a modern action movie, it's like 5 acts
Yeah.
essentially, because you're breaking down action pieces. So I think that is one interesting thing about this movie, kind of being a proto version of that, is like it's not really written that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not written in 5 acts like you would a normal modern action movie. So they really drew out that last hour to kind of be even though it's multiple set pieces,
Yeah.
it still it runs like it's one.
Sure. It's continuous to them.
Right. So like getting out of the castle, getting to the lift itself, getting down the lift, jumping off of it, then you got
Into
a
the
car
bus,
chase, right?
yeah.
Then you got a car chase sequence. You got all of these things that kind of just line up one after another, and it is a bit of a marathon.
Oh, sure.
So I will admit, like I did kind of get to a point in that second half where I'm like, man, like
it's not getting any easier.
like it's just like, okay, like it's like it goes to this one thing, go to another
Yeah.
thing, go to another thing.
But
go to
it's
another
like,
thing.
yeah,
And then you get on the plane, and you gotta like get onto the plane, and then you have the one last reveal, and
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, so it's like an hour for this 1% more of
the story.
narrative, which is
Yeah.
why I said, like, is it possible for a movie to end in the middle? 'Cause-
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's like, also I think of, we kind of compare it to Mission Impossible, or like the final act of a heist movie, like in Ocean's 11. Like, most of those movies, the heist works perfectly,
yeah,
and you're just watching what they talked about happen.
yeah.
But maybe even more so, like those Chris Hemsworth extraction movies. I don't think you've seen
I've
this,
never
but
seen
that
those.
that style movie that is literally from start to finish. It is a 90-minute set piece, just for 90 minutes straight.
Yeah.
Then the movie really never slows down. If it does slow down, it's for like 3 or 4 minutes, and it's literally just to like switch out their clothes and get
Yeah.
going again. You know what I mean? So I think that's how the last hour plays. And I think in the 60s, I don't know, like, if movies were this aggressive, especially at this time in 1968, aggressive with we're going to just string so much action together. Like, this is literally just an action movie at this time.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, like, how thrilling that would have been then, because some of the stuff is, like, not as tense as it would be nowadays. We're kind of talking about the adventure movie now versus then.
Right,
but
how it's been
it's so much.
perfected.
It's so much more practical then that
Yeah.
there is limits on what their car chase can do. There's limits on,
Sure.
we're going to blow this up, and then we're going to blow this up, and then we're going to blow this other thing up.
Right.
And that's how these work. That's how this one worked. But I will say my favorite part, just I did want to deep dive a little bit, is into that ski lift scene, the ski lift thing, because this castle, what's it called?
Schloss Adler. Yeah, Schloss Adler.
The castle at the top of the mountain. That's where eagles dare.
Yeah.
That lift down, riding on top of it. I think early in the movie when they're going into it, like, to me, just sitting on top of it, I'd be like, yeah, this is not for me. I wouldn't want to do this.
Yeah.
Then 30 minutes later in the movie to have a fight scene going down it, I thought was really, really smart.
Yeah.
And I find it to be quite tense. Obviously, it's a movie, and it's they're probably like 5 feet off the ground in real life, but I found it to be quite tense.
Yeah, of the set pieces, the continuous set pieces in that last hour, I do think the ski lift is probably the most effective.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think it's just because of the way it was shot and kind of the fear of heights element of it. Almost like a Hitchcockian element, like Vertigo, where the guys are like hanging off the side and stuff like that. I think they did all of that stuff really effectively.
And like I mentioned in the first half, that was like the front projection, like that. When they're filming that they have that ski lift projection behind them.
Right.
So I think that would be something that would be like, in the 60s, to see that for the first time, you probably would have such a different grasp on how high they are than what you've seen in other movies. That I think that would be a really gripping scene back then.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, and you do have to, in all the movies that we watch, since we kind of cover the entire span of film, like, you do kind of have to try to, at the very least, put yourself in the frame of mind of the viewer when you're seeing this in 1969,
right?
As compared to watching it, now in 2025, and absolutely, seeing it for the first time in 1969, I'm sure was just like, whoa, like, this is crazy,
right.
You're right.
I'm
now
scared.
it's
I'm feeling dizzy.
This is like the newest Netflix movie that just came out last
exactly.
week. You know what I mean? They all have this.
Yeah, I mean, front projection is pretty much dead anyway. You would just blue screen it.
Right. Right. But I'm talking about
Yeah, so
the spectacle of it.
Right, yeah. So that ski lift scene, though, like I said, it allowed him to do something that really wasn't done before, at least in this way. Like this, there's use of some miniatures in there too,
right,
and stuff. But I just find that I think they map that out really well. And that's kind of what these adventure movies and how they work is like, do the fight scenes make sense? Do they time out? And is there believability in it? And I think like that scene is probably at its best. The escaping of the castle is fine, but it's just really walking through hallways and shooting people. It's it's your classic laissez-faire, whatever, action stuff. But yeah, you just got to be on the roller coaster, I guess, for that last hack.
Yeah, absolutely. And and you can kind of like, because there's stuff that they set up before they even head up to the castle,
right,
like some of like the explosives and stuff for the car chase sequence and stuff, and you're like, okay, well, was this the plan all along? Like, there's, so you know what I mean, like
the escape,
right? So like some of that feels a little too like, all right, this is perfect, but especially for something that's supposed to feel spontaneous, exactly. Like there was a bit of that, but granted, it was kind of the finale of it, because like that's how they were finally able to kind of get them off of their tail, was like blowing up all of these trees and poles and stuff to kind of like keep them from being able to follow them.
Yeah, I think they always knew they were going to have to get to the airport.
Right.
There was probably a high likelihood they would be being chased. They weren't going to get out clean with 5 people, 6 people.
Right.
And so, like, we have to have a backup plan if we're not out clean.
Yeah.
But my other thing is, so even worse. All right, let's say they did get out clean. Were they going to take all the C4 down, or just have some little kid run into a wire and then get his head blown off?
I guess that was just a chance they were willing to take. What if they shot me in the face?
Yeah. What if they shot you in the face? But yeah, so, and I think, eventually, we kind of get through this, and not just to jump to the end right away, but, when they do that last bit on the plane, like, you're like, okay, this movie's done. I'm a little tired. Like, this last act, like you said, was
It was
it's
a
a
bit
stretch.
long.
It was a
It's a bit
marathon. Like
long.
you're kind of like you're sweating a little bit through it, and then you're like, all right, the movie's over, and they say, no, we have about 5 more minutes. We want to talk about one more thing.
Right, like I said, you get that 1% of narrative where you find out that the colonel is also a double A. Like he was
Yeah.
on that list, which
He
again,
wasn't on any. I don't think he was on the list. I think he needed to hand him the book that was empty, or like he needed him to point the gun at him and like to get him to convince that way.
Right.
They're like,
Yeah, because he wasn't. His name wasn't in there.
No.
Yeah.
No, because it's again Richard Burton's character Smith. Like he just pulls another fast one. He's like, yeah, you're, the biggest name we were looking for this whole mission was yours, sir. Here it is in the book. And then he opens the book and it's blank. He's like, you would have not checked if you were innocent. First of all, you wouldn't have checked. You'd be like,
Sure.
my name's not in there.
Right.
And he wouldn't have pointed the gun at them and
Right.
stuff.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. And he had been under suspicion. According to Richard
Yeah.
Burton's character, like he was under suspicion before this mission even started. So
Right.
he was kind of. So that's kind of the other part of it, where it's like they already kind of suspected him anyway, which is why they gave him the gun without the firing pin and like all of that
Yeah.
stuff. So it's like, it's hard to say that he's the big kahuna in all of it when they clearly knew he was a double agent going into it.
Yeah, we just need a little bit of proof, and if we destroy a German castle along the way, it's like a win-win.
Because what if he wasn't a double agent and he needed to use that gun to help shoot
Yeah.
the Nazis off of their tail so they could get on the plane?
That would have sucked.
That was a chance we were willing to take.
That's another little shoot in the face thing. But I do like the final scene where he's like, he's kind of admitted that he is the double agent and he doesn't really want to go to trial. So they're like, what are my other choices?
Yeah.
And Richard Burton just kind of looks at the plane doors that you could walk out the plane and just jump to your death.
I mean, he
Thank
took
you.
option 2.
Yeah. But I kind of like, he opens the door, he stands there, he looks back. You see Richard Burton and Clint look at him, and they don't show him
Yeah.
jump out of the plane. Just see Clint go over and shut the door. I don't know. I just like that. I don't know. I felt like, I don't know. I felt like it was a tasteful way to show
Yeah.
this. I don't know. I just like. I think that was a nice close to the movie how they did that.
Yeah, no, I could agree with that. And especially if you're not going to cut to an outside shot of him falling or whatever.
We
It's
have
just
seen guys falling.
Right.
We don't really need to.
Yeah, and it was kind of a somber scene anyway, just overall, so
Yeah.
it made sense to kind of not have another big action kind of set piece of him falling to the death
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And it just closing
It would have been
kind of
overkill. We're settling down now. This is your cool down of your workout.
right, and it really is because they're everybody's just kind of sitting there we're
Yeah.
going home. Mary's unwrapping the Smith's hand so she can probably rebandage it
Yeah.
or whatever, and so yeah, it was a quiet way to end the movie. I could agree with that.
Yeah, we had to calm it down. So, like we said though, with our question, you're talking about adventure movies now and then. So kind of giving some examples. There's adventure movies that do this last hour, and that is the movie. People
Right.
do that. There's the Mission Impossibles or the heist movies where it's they'll do the last half hour where it's just straight mission and escape and stuff, and maybe even Mission Impossible 1, maybe it's more than a half hour, maybe it's the same hour, but there isn't the hour before it, maybe that this movie has. Or
I don't even think the first Mission Impossible movie is written like this. Like I said, I think even by then they're kind of really running off that 5-act action format, and
I think the last half hour of those movies is pretty nonstop.
yeah, and then that's again that's kind of like the fifth that
Yeah.
fifth act is that it's more like that second act it's what get broken down into 3. So you got your first act, you kind of break
Yeah.
down your second act into 3 set pieces, and then you got your last act,
Yeah.
your finale. So and I think it's
Well, I'm thinking more length of time wise, though. You know what I mean?
sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I think just for this it was so. I think what it boiled down to is that the narrative was rather thin.
Mhm.
While it's complex in what they were doing, I said,
Right.
that one scene, overall it's pretty thin. Like I said, when you get everything to that first half, getting into there was very a little bit here, a little bit there, kind of whatever. And then like I said, the movie kind of gets to that point, and they were like, well, we don't have what do we want to do? You know what I mean? We've kind of put everything out there now in this big scene, and like you said, we have that one last twist, but how do we get there? And they basically just kind of put in this hour-long action sequence. And I think as far as a spectacle goes, by 69, you're like, let's go big.
Sure.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, and I think that was also probably part of it as well.
I think
It's
it's,
just like,
I
let's
think
just
it was
go
a big
big.
part of it.
Yeah.
So I guess when you're I'm not saying this is the first movie that like went this big. I'm sure there were others and maybe more or less effective. Who knows? Um, but I do think with later adventure movies, you learn lessons from movies like this because, like I said, it was a highly regarded movie of its time because of the quote unquote revolutionary kind of stuff they did at parts. But you're gonna learn good and you're gonna take stuff away.
Yeah.
So what do I know you kind of mentioned like you see stuff maybe in adventure movies now and then. Like, do you think what are some lessons you maybe if you were making an adventure movie you would take from this or and to do and not to do?
Well, like I said, I think what kind of they worked with in this is, or what a modern movie would do with this is kind of take that last hour and kind of more distribute it throughout maybe more of the second act. You know what I mean? And kind of break that up a little bit. So as opposed to having all those set pieces lined up right at the
Make
end.
getting into the castle a little harder.
Right, exactly. Like amp that tension up in that first half, kind of make some of the set pieces there, and then cut a little bit there in that last half.
Yeah.
That's what I would think.
Yeah, and I think too if you knew the three crew members better,
Yeah.
when you learn that they're traitors, it would kick more.
Right.
It would hurt more.
Sure, and I think just tightening up of certain elements of it, you know what I mean? Like just maybe you don't need as much time in the castle because you're going to use the big set piece of the lift.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or the set piece of the car chase.
Right.
That kind of thing. I think you kind of pick and choose a little bit more. Like I said, especially if you're lining it up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like I said, you're kind of spreading it out throughout the movie.
Yeah, I think nowadays, I think they are really focus on like the audience fatigue level in these movies.
Sure.
But where I think back then I do think like this was different where they were trying to wear you out. Like they're like this is gonna be nonstop for like a really long time.
Yeah.
I think it was purposeful back then because it was more rare.
Yeah.
Where nowadays we see so many action movies where even if you think about a Marvel movie, sometimes you're still like, yeah, this scene it's a bit long. I've seen the shooting and the kicking and it's enough. Let's move on.
Yeah. No, I can agree with that.
All right, Rob, well, let's wrap up this movie where Eagles dare, or as Clint Eastwood called it, where stuntmen dared.
That makes sense.
Because there was a lot of stunts.
I get
a lot of jumping away from explosions.
Oh, Clint.
I did love the use of C4 real quick. Like there's so
Used
much
a
like
lot.
they kind of show you like this is a tripwire, this one's timer. See this little device we can flick back and forth between the two, and like
right.
There's like at least 10 minutes of this movie is devoted to setting up C4.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. That where it's just like they did kind of elongate simple things.
Yeah.
In this movie, like you said. In another movie, it might be like they just walk up and they put it on real fast, maybe clip the thing and then walk away. Like there's so much
set up to like this is gonna work. This is how it's gonna work.
It gets kind of in that minutia quite a bit during
this
movie.
And I'm trying to wrap up the combo, but even to that point, I will say too, in fairness, like because these movies are so practical, it is harder to do some of like to be as creative as we see in adventure movies nowadays. So
Sure.
It's like we're blowing up this bridge and we're blowing up this building and we're blowing up this hallway, like. There's a lot of getting stuff set up to be blown up, but there was only so much they could really do back then. What I mean? Like we're not taking jet skis down the mountain,
right?
Snowmobiles down the mountain. But okay, anyway, as I was saying, to wrap up this convencid we cannot wrap it up without answering the final question.
The final tripwire.
The real, true. Don't trip over it. How'd you like the movie, Rob? And would you recommend it?
So. Going into it, I kind of mentioned it before, like I was interested to kind of see what a movie like this from this era, kind of moving into the 70s, like just kind of that shifting Hollywood, if you will, and like kind of what this would look like. And it's a fascinating movie, especially watching it now, because like we've said, there's so much of a modern action film DNA in this movie. From the set pieces themselves and how they're utilized to just the shot design and things like that. You're talking about like the front projection and things like that. Like all of these things that I feel like we see all the way to this day. So this movie is, I'm sure, if it's not taught in film school, at least, directors definitely reference this movie a lot, as they are, creating their pieces now. And so it's extremely influential. I will say I did find it kind of tedious at times. Like I said, I think the first half is tedious because it feels like there's no tension, and you kind of
Mhm.
like lull a little bit at times where you're like, okay, like what's happening? You
Right.
know what I mean? Like, and like you said, kind of taking those time,
of?
right? And like who's like you're taking the time, like you're the minutia of like setting these things up and all that stuff, and then with this, you have this really great scene in the middle where everything is revealed, and then you have an entire hour-long action sequence, like you said, to kind of get to that last 1% of narrative. And that last hour is good, but it does feel like a lot.
Maybe a
Again,
bit too many.
right?
Too long.
So it's like maybe this needed another pass on the editing,
Sure.
or whatever. But in the end, yes.
Oh, really?
I did like Where Eagles Dare, and I think it is because I do kind of see it as this kind of proto action film. So I like,
Yeah.
I really love like the stuff that they were trying.
Yeah. The
You know what I
precedents
mean?
maybe they were setting.
Right, exactly the precedents that they were setting. I thought Clint Eastwood was furniture essentially in this movie, so I would not call this a Clint Eastwood movie.
No.
This was a Richard Burton movie, and Richard Burton knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
I thought
really
he
good.
was great. I thought, all of his interactions were great. I thought, him with Mary was good. Even though she, her, Heidi, they were both
Relatively
furniture,
flat.
right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they were both more or less furniture. But that's not, necessarily a dig on them. I
Sure.
think that's just when you're like when the plot is so driven by the plan.
Right.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like
Yep.
the pieces of the plan tend to kind of fall into the background. And I thought that same thing about the other like team members,
Mhm.
that they parachuted in with. Like I almost didn't even know their names, half of them.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
You're just like, what? And then like when they turned out to be German spies, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So I guess
That's
that
why I
makes
didn't
sense.
get to know him.
That's why I didn't get to know you. But overall, Richard Burton as a character, Smith as a character, really carried this movie, really from beginning to end, like almost a Herculean
Sure.
feat. Put
Sure.
it all on his back and just carried it from beginning to end. So, but in the end, yeah, no, I really enjoyed Where's Eagles Dare. I can be hit or miss on war movies.
Sure.
Like, just in this era and prior, but this one I think worked really well.
All right, Rob. Well, I made you watch Where Eagles Dare, but there's a lot of other things I didn't make you watch. What else you been checking out?
We are in Halloween time,
Yeah.
so we revisit a lot of movies this month, so it's not as much new as I normally would watch.
Sure.
But one that it's kind of funny. Andrea watches it every year, and I felt like I had seen it, but I don't normally watch it with her. And I finally did this year, and that is Practical Magic.
Oh, that's an oldie.
It is.
You
It
haven't
is
checked
an
that out.
oldie.
It surprises me.
I know. Well, because I think in my mind I thought I had seen it,
Mhm.
and I think maybe it had just been because I had pieced little pieces together, like having like walked in the room when she's watched it in years past. But Sandra Bullock, Nicole Kidman, it's an interesting take on a witch story.
Yeah.
It's like a little dark, but it still feels a little like cheesy rom-com in a way. But it was good. It was enjoyable. It was probably better than I thought it was in my mind for having never actually seen it.
The pieces you saw didn't do the whole justice.
Right, correct. Yeah. So I enjoyed that. Tying it back to my episode, we got around to watching Hellhole, which is the follow-up from the Addams Family after they did Hellbender.
Okay.
So I finally got to watch Hellhole, and their streak continues in my mind. Their
really?
streak continues. Yeah, it's a different kind of movie. It's a creature feature. Clearly, it had a bigger budget. I actually looked it up. It was $1 million, which you thought they shot Deeper
Yeah.
You Dig for. They actually shot Hellhole for that. They shot it in Serbia at like this kind of like abandoned factory. But it was
They had a real location.
real location, bigger cast. Even though Zelda and Lulu are not in it, which is their daughters.
Yeah,
neither
that's
one
weird.
Neither one of them are in it. But I think Lulu co-wrote it. I think.
Okay.
So it's just Toby Poser and John Adams. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It was what you would expect from them. Like
Yeah.
it's their vibe. They kind of keep, even though they kind of just tweak their genre a little bit. Like I said, kind of getting more into that creature feature elements. They're able to just hit all the right notes and again, still really even costing $1 million. Making it feel like even bigger than that.
Oh, that's cool.
So I got to commend them for that. The other thing, which I'm sure you finished as well, was season 2 of Peacemaker.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
So that finally wrapped up, and it was good.
Yeah.
I think I do. Yeah, it felt kind of smaller and quicker than the first season, I
Yeah, I don't
guess.
think it was as strong as season 1.
Yeah, I will agree with that. Like, it was good, but yeah, I don't know if it was quite as good as season 1. I liked what they were kind of doing thematically, with like the two universes, and like, Chris Smith, like, not knowing where he belonged.
Yeah. And even that seemed like it wrapped up relatively quickly once it
Sure.
wrapped itself up.
Yeah.
But
And the oddest thing is there's no season 3 planned, from what I've read.
Right.
Like, James
Yeah.
Gunn has said they have no plans for season 3, but the characters aren't done, and you can kind of see what I'm guessing is going to end up into Man of Tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, that's the new
Yeah.
Superman. Yeah, so I think I see where they're going with it, especially
Right.
since that movie's coming out so quickly.
Yeah. And who knows? Some of these characters might pop up in that since they're kind of tied
I think they
to
will.
it. Yeah.
I think they absolutely will.
Yeah.
I mean, now that you kind of have Lex Luthor in there and
Yeah.
all of that in the mix, I
Working with
absolutely
Rick
think
Flag.
right. I absolutely think that's going to be part of the next Superman movie. So I'm sure that's where they will pop up. But that wraps it up for me as far as what I've been watching that's new. That's
Yeah.
new. But what about you, man? What have you been checking
I
out?
actually have checked out a few things. Obviously, Peacemaker, which you said.
Obviously.
I finished Upload, which is the Prime show with like
Yeah.
Robbie ML. I've talked about it before. They just did like a 4-episode like series finale kind of season.
Oh, they ended it.
They ended. It's
Oh,
over. So
okay.
that was only 4 episodes. Kind of felt like they're like, oh, I think we're actually done. Like,
Yeah.
we've done everything. So, and it was fine. Like I really enjoyed the first season. Like it did a lot. Like it's kind of like after you die, your consciousness can get uploaded
Mm-hmm.
to a system. So like it's like kind of heaven type deal.
Right.
But it's like not for free. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
you can live happily
Right.
ever after if you can afford it.
Right.
So they can
Yeah.
play a lot of funny commentary there.
Sure.
But then it started, eventually it's like, well, what do you do after that? Then it's like people are getting stuck in this matrix, escaping a matrix. It's all right. I feel like this is losing the magic and funness of season 1 and kind of just
Mhm.
turns into like what all these like Tron and Matrix type stuff,
Right.
Westworld that they have to come into. Like people
Right.
escaping the world, and we have computer programs living in the real world and vice versa. And it's like, okay, I feel like I've seen this before.
Yeah.
So, but it was fine. I'm glad they ended it when they did. So I watched the new live action Lilo and Stitch.
Oh,
A lot of
I've been
people
meaning to do
A lot of
that.
people said it was really good.
I've
and,
heard that too.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I've
Mr.
never
Kitty Kaiju loved it.
Yeah, I've never watched the cartoon though, so I don't have
Oh,
anything to
I
compare it
didn't
on.
know
I went in
that.
with absolutely zero expectation. I was like,
Yeah.
this is fun. This is a little bit of a different take on like a kid movie and a
Mhm.
kid's behavior, and they're kind of learning to be less wild, and I like that.
Mr. Kitty Kaiju said when he saw it that he actually liked it better than the animated
Oh,
version,
really?
which is not a very common thing, I
No.
feel like, in that regard.
Yeah, as we discussed much on
As
Copy
we-
and Copy.
with Aladdin, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then I watched I Like Me, the John Candy.
Oh yeah, I need to
doc.
get to that.
So, and I did like that.
desperately wanted to get to that.
Yeah, John Candy was such a treasure. It's good to
Yeah.
kind of see some of the stuff, hear people talk about him. You get to learn stuff that we never would have known back then.
I've heard
So,
that. Yeah, there's a
yeah.
lot of that stuff in there, which is good because
Oh, yeah.
sometimes you feel like there's no surprises. I hate watching a
Yeah.
documentary like that where it's like I feel like I know all this stuff.
Yeah,
So it's nice to actually have a doc that's not that,
Right,
where you get
yeah.
some inside
and
stuff.
but I do think at the end of the day, I think John Candy was just a treasure. Like the guy you saw in the show movies was pretty close to the who he wanted to be as a real human being. Everybody has flaws and stuff, so it's just good to round him out like that. So I think the documentary is well done. I think it was done by Colin Hanks. So it was
It
cool.
was.
Yeah,
Was.
That was cool.
In fact, I think he and Ryan Reynolds, who I think did maybe produced it.
Maybe, yeah. He
think
wasn't in it.
No, yeah, but I think he produced
yeah.
it. I know they showed up to the premiere at Toronto because they did it at Toronto for him, since that's he was
Yeah,
Canadian.
Big
and
time Canadian.
all. And they showed up in like the burnt out station wagon from Planes, Trains, and
Very
Automobiles.
cool.
The
That
video
is
of that.
cool.
If anybody hasn't seen that video, look it up. It's really funny.
All right. Well, this is going to wrap up our conversation on Where Eagles Dare, and now is my opportunity to have a podcaster dare the audience
Wow.
to like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, review the podcast. If you leave us a 5-star review, we're going to read it live on air someday, and I'll even double dare people to do that. If you guys want to reach
Triple dog dare.
Oh my God, he did it. He pulled out the triple dog. There's nothing left to be said. Don't forget, you guys can reach out to us on email at carrayrob@gmail.com or reach out to us on Blue Sky.
Absolutely. You can also follow us on Facebook now at Car Ray Rob Podcast Network. If there is a comment section on whatever platform you're on, by all means, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought of Where Eagles Dare. I want to know what your favorite Clint Eastwood movie is.
Ooh.
Any era, doesn't matter. I want to know what it is. Be sure to let us know. We will be back next week with this month's Hello Movies, my old friend.
What are we going to talk about?
We are going to be talking about the comic book flop, Spawn.
Spawn. But it didn't flop because of us. We paid to see it.
We did pay to see it. We have a story to tell, and we will tell it during that episode. You are not going to want to miss it. We will be back in 2 weeks, and it will be back to me, our first episode of Say Hello to My Little Film of November.
Oh my God, we only got 2 months left for this season.
I know. I don't even know where this year is going. But we've had a lot of fun this year.
Sure.
And we've watched a lot of great movies, and we want you to watch them as well. But until then, this is Car Ray Rob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
Hey everyone, Rob here. Want to give you a little sneak peek of what my first episode of November of Say Hello to My Little Film is going to be. And I am extremely excited about this one because Ray showed me a Western last November. We watched High Noon. So for this November, I'm going to show him a Western. But I'm going to go a little different direction. I'm going to be showing Robert Altman's 1971 revisionist Western, McCabe and Mrs. Miller. Altman as a director is one of my absolute favorite directors. This is not your typical Western, and but I think Ray is still going to like it, and I think you will too. So be sure to check it out and join us then.